Hello. Today we will discuss about a very interesting theorem in solid state physics. The theorem is called Bloch theorem. Before going into the details of this Bloch theorem, let us see what was the prior theorems, the prior theory existed before Bloch theorem. The existing theory before Bloch theorem came into the picture was free electron theory. The major assumptions of the free electron theory were that at first it assumed that there is a three-dimensional potential well of constant potential in every solid. A three-dimensional potential well of constant potential. So, there is a constant potential well existing in every solid and the electrons move inside this constant potential well. The second assumption was electrons move about in this constant potential well. Actually, the free electron theory was very successful in explaining many things. The major thing was, the major phenomenon was, it was successful in explaining electrical conductivity. Then it was very much successful in explaining another phenomenon called thermionic emission. Thermionic emission is a process of emission of electrons from the surface of a metal when it is heated, and free electron theory was very much successful in explaining thermionic emission as well as the electrical conductivity of metals, but it failed to answer some simple questions, and these are the simple questions. The first question was, why some materials are good conductors? Why some materials are good conductors? 2. The second question was associated with the first question, why some materials are good insulators, and the third question is, why some materials are semiconductors? Why some materials are semiconductors? In short, the free electron theory failed to answer the classification of materials on the basis of conductivity. It could not explain why some materials are good conductors, why there exist some very good insulators, and why there are certain materials which have conductivity between conductors and insulators. Now, what could be wrong? So, we need to go back to the fundamentals, the fundamental assumptions that constitute the free electron theory. And I have said that the fundamental theory, the fundamental assumption behind a free electron theory is that the electrons move inside a constant potential well inside every solid, and we need to ask question to this particular statement: is the potential inside a crystal really constant? If it is really constant, then the free electron theory should be successful in explaining all these things, but it failed in explaining the differentiation between conductors, insulators and semiconductors. So, we arrive at the conclusion that the potential well inside a crystal is not a constant. So, potential inside the crystal is not actually constant. It is not a constant. Okay. But why? Why is it not a constant? If you say that the potential inside the crystal is not a constant, then you should explain why it is not a constant. Okay, let us explain it like this. When an electron approaches a positive ion, the electron has a negative charge and the ion has a positive charge. Automatically, the potential at that point decreases. Clearly, the potential could not be said as a constant. So, you have an electron with a negative charge and you have an ion with a positive charge. Automatically, the potential decreases. So, we need to introduce the variation of this potential inside the metallic crystal due to the presence of positive ions. Let us assume that the potential is periodic with the periodicity of the lattice. That is, V of x equal to V of x plus a. Put it as equation 1. Here, the letter A shows the lattice parameter. The potential will be minimum at the positive ion sides and maximum between the two ions. You can see the picture and it represents the periodic potential, where the potential is minimum at the lattice side, which are represented, which are written as nuclei, which are actually positive ions, and maximum between the positive ions. The corresponding one dimensional Schrodinger equation could be written as d square psi by dx square plus 8 pi square m by h square E minus V of x into psi equal to 0. This is taken as equation 2, where m is the mass of the electron and h is the Planck's constant. The one dimensional solution for this equation, equation 2, was given by Bloch as psi k of x equal to u k of x into e raised to I k x. This equation 3 is known as Bloch function in one dimension. But we know that the actual crystals are not one dimension, but 3 dimension. So, we need to write the equation in 3 dimension. The 3 dimension equation of Bloch function is given by psi k of r equal to u k of r into e raised to I k dot r, and take it as equation 4. This is Bloch function in 3 dimensions. The Bloch functions represent the free electron wave modulated by the periodic function u k x in one dimension or u k r in 3 dimension. We know that the free electron wave function is e raised to I k dot x in one dimension and e raised to I k dot r in 3 dimension. Now, what is the periodicity of u k x? Clearly, the periodicity should be the periodicity of the lattice. Let us assume that there are n atoms in a linear chain of length capital N. So, you have n atoms in a linear chain of length L. Then we may write uk of x equal to uk of x plus n a. Take it as equation 5. Now, psi k of x plus n a equal to uk of x plus n a into e raised to I k of x plus n a equal to e raised to I k n a uk of x e raised to I k x equal to e raised to I k n a psi k of x. This condition, which is psi k of x plus n a equal to e raised to I k n a psi k of x, is referred to as the Bloch condition. Let us write the Bloch condition as equation 6. The complex conjugate of this Bloch equation is given by psi star k of x plus n a equal to e raised to minus I k n a psi star k of x. Put it as equation 7. Now, we take the product of 6 and 7, the Bloch function and its complex conjugate, and it gives psi k of x plus n a into psi k star of x plus n a equal to psi k of x into psi k star of x. This is equation 8. This means, the above equation 8 means that the probability of finding electron is the same everywhere in the whole lattice. The probability of finding an electron at point x is the same as the probability of finding an electron at a point x plus n a, or the probability of finding an electron is the same everywhere inside the crystal. Now, consider the Bloch function equation 6. It yields a result e raised to I k n a equal to 1, or k capital N into a equal to 2 pi into small n, where small n equal to 0, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, etc. Or we can find an equation for k as k equal to 2 pi small n by capital N into a equal to 2 pi small n by capital L, which is taken as equation 9. When small n equal to n by 2, k equal to pi by a. See the condition, when small n equal to n by 2, where n is the total number of atoms, then the k becomes pi by a, and we know that pi by a is the edge of the first Brillouin zone. This is the edge of first Brillouin zone. When capital N is very large, or we are considering a large number of atoms or large number of ions, the allowed values of k would come closer and closer, and the distribution along the k axis would be somewhat quasi continuous. The total number of allowed values of k in the first Brillouin zone is given by the ratio of length of the first Brillouin zone to the length of the unit spacing. The total number of allowed values, the total number of allowed values, total number of allowed values, total number of allowed values of k, total number of allowed values of k is given by length of length of the first Brillouin zone, length of the first Brillouin zone divided by the length of the unit spacing, the length of the unit spacing. We know that the length of the first Brillouin zone is 2 times pi by a. This is equal to 2 times pi by a, and the length of the unit spacing is 2 pi by L, where L is the length. So, you will get it as, you cancel 2 pi and 2 pi and you get the result as L by A, which is nothing but the total number of ions in the lattice. In short, Bloch theorem tells us about the periodicity of potential. This periodicity of potential could be applied to classify the materials electrically into conductors, insulators and semiconductors. One such application of Bloch theorem to classify the materials electrically was done by Kronig and Penny, and their model is known as the Kronig-Penny model. In the Kronig-Penny model, in order to study the exact relationship between E and K, a well-defined periodic potential was suggested by Kronig and Penny. So, we start studying the Kronig-Penny model. The Kronig-Penny model. So, as I have said, the well-defined periodic potential is suggested by Kronig and Penny, where in the form of square wells as shown in the figure. You can clearly see two regions in the figure, and we need to write Schrodinger equations for the two regions separately. The Schrodinger equation for region 1 is d square psi by dx square plus 8 pi square m by h square E psi equal to 0 for 0 less than x less than a, that is for the region in which x is between 0 and a, or we may write it as d square psi by dx square plus alpha square psi equal to 0, where alpha square equal to 8 pi square m E by h square. Similarly, we need to write an equation, a Schrodinger equation for region 2, and the equation is d square psi by dx square plus 8 pi square m by h square into E minus V 0 psi equal to 0 for minus b less than x less than 0, that is in the region between minus b and 0, or we may modify the equation and write it as d square psi by dx square minus beta square psi equal to 0, where beta square is equal to 8 pi square m by h square into V 0 minus e. Note the difference, in the equation it is E minus V 0, but here we have written it as V 0 minus E. Since the expected solutions of the equations are similar to Bloch function, it is required that psi and d psi by dx, psi as well as d psi by dx, both should be continuous throughout the crystal. Let us write the general solution as psi 1 x equal to a e raised to I alpha x plus b e raised to minus alpha x, and psi 2 x equal to c e raised to beta x plus d e raised to minus beta x for e value less than v 0. In the equation that we have written, a, b, c and d are constants in the regions 1 and 2, which are obtained by applying the following boundary conditions. We have already said that the conditions are psi and d psi by dx should be continuous. So, let us apply the condition. The first condition is like this: the modulus of psi 1 of x at x equal to 0 is equal to modulus of psi 2 of x at x equal to 0. Also, d psi 1 by dx at x equal to 0 should be equal to d psi 2 by dx at x equal to 0. Likewise, we have other boundary conditions for a and minus b, and they are like this: the modulus of psi 1 of x at x equal to a should be equal to modulus of psi 2 of x at x equal to minus b. Also, d psi 1 by dx at x equal to a should be equal to d psi 2 by dx at x equal to minus b. And these conditions will have non-vanishing solutions only when the determinant of coefficients of a, b, c and d vanish. The determinant is, the equations are like this: a plus b equal to c plus d, I alpha into a minus b equal to beta into c minus d, c e raised to minus beta b plus d e raised to beta b equal to e raised to minus I k into a plus b into a e raised to I alpha a plus b e raised to minus alpha a, and finally beta c e raised to minus beta b plus beta d e raised to beta b equal to I alpha e raised to minus I k into a plus b into a e raised to I alpha a minus b e raised to minus I alpha a. As I said earlier, these equations will have non-vanishing solutions only when the determinant of the coefficients a, b, c and d vanish. Let us write the determinant of the coefficients of a, b, c and d, and the determinant is as you are seeing in the monitor: 1, 1, minus 1, minus 1, I alpha minus I alpha minus beta, beta, minus e raised to I k into a plus b plus I alpha a, minus c raised to minus I k into a plus b minus I alpha a, e raised to minus beta b, e raised to beta b, minus I alpha e raised to I k into a plus b plus I alpha a, I alpha e raised to minus I k into a plus b minus I alpha a, beta e raised to minus beta b, beta minus beta e raised to beta b should be equal to 0. On simplification, this we get cos k into a plus b equal to beta square minus alpha square by 2 alpha beta into sin alpha a into sin h beta b plus cos alpha a cos h beta b. Put this as equation 1. Let us continue our discussion on Kronig-Penney model on the next session. Till then, bye.